issues I discussed with the attorneys in chambers. Court is ready to have that matter resolved this morning. If the state would please state into the record exactly what the issue is with the evidence, and then, of course, I'll give the defense time to respond, and then I will rule accordingly.
Yeah. When we were preparing for trial, we were given the paint bucket there that, if the court will notice, has a number 6 on the top of it. Inside that bucket is a paper bag with the corresponding number 6 listed as evidence piece number 6 that was collected at the scene, which would be a piece of clothing found in the out by the car at the scene. We entered that into evidence, and there is residue in the bottom of the sack. And when I was talking to the analyst, ATF analyst in Atlanta, he advised that it could very well be that due to the condition of the clothing that it had disintegrated, and that's what I was looking at. When he got over here yesterday, I showed him the piece of evidence, and he indicated to me that that was not the actual bucket that he had returned the evidence in. So we began looking yesterday afternoon, and we learned that on the 2nd of January of 2015, ATF lab did return a bucket along with several other pieces of evidence that had been submitted that had no significance here for trial purposes. And the officers at the Sheriff's Department began looking for the evidence that had been shipped to them, and the issue became at that point whether or not Matthew Simon's testimony would be impaired because of that. And the state's position back yesterday was that it would not be, because it goes to credibility rather than admissibility of Matthew Simon's testimony. Therefore, we cannot produce the actual bucket that contained the piece of clothing, even after due search out at the Sheriff's Department all day yesterday and last night. But still, the state would wish to submit Matthew Simon as an expert to what he testified to what was recovered and placed in the bag that actually is in evidence. The sack that is in evidence is accurate. That is what Edward collected and placed it in. There is residue in there. However, that bucket and that sack were not submitted to ATF lab, but what was in the sack was submitted to the ATF lab.
All right. Mr. Peterson, Ms. Palmer, whichever one of y'all would like to respond.
Yes, sir, Your Honor. We would have an objection to Mr. Simon's testimony in that the original clothing, if my understanding is correct, the original item is not here today, that piece of evidence, as well as the bucket it was returned in by ATF. And for those reasons, even though it may indeed have the residue that was there originally, we just don't have the bucket sent back from ATF, as well as the actual piece of evidence. And the chain of custody may have started out proper according to the state, but the matter is that that chain of custody was broken. And for those reasons, we would object to his testimony today.
All right.
If I could respond, I think the case law is very clear that when there's an argument as to chain of custody, there has to be an allegation of tampering. And there has to be some proof provided by the defense of tampering. I don't think the law requires us to place every single person in the chain of custody on the stand. And if it is a chain of custody argument, we're not, and I understand we would have a bigger problem had they wanted to have it tested on their own and things like that, but that was never requested of us. The simple matter is it was returned to the Sheriff's Department. We cannot place it in evidence, but what he testified to or what he learned or what he examined, I do not believe will be in question.
course, this was brought to the court's attention late yesterday afternoon. The court was not prepared to rule on that issue yesterday, and Ms. Smith, my very able staff attorney, of course, spent the evening researching this very issue, we liken it down to a case where maybe the evidence is tested in, for some reason or another, of such an insignificant amount, it was all used up in testing. The court likens it to that. There's really no case that we could find directly in point, but certainly there was no intent or bad faith exhibited by the state in what has happened here today and the loss of this evidence. No deliberate attempt by the state to destroy or keep the evidence from the defendant. Further, as pointed out, there was no request for independent testing of the lost evidence. Has been none at any time during the trial. There's no dispute that the evidence before the court in Exhibit 6 and the other bucket that has been lost contained any exculpatory matters or had any exculpatory value. Therefore, the court's going to rule that the rules of evidence do not prohibit expert testimony regarding test results when the tested material is no longer available. And as I stated that earlier, this is comparable to when evidence is completely destroyed in testing. It does not prevent the expert from testifying. And we use as authority for that Hampton versus State 498 Southern 2nd 384 Mississippi 1986. So that will be the ruling of the court. Defendant's exception is noted. Anything further?
Yes, sir.
All right. May bring the jury in, please. How you doing after your fall? You doing okay?
Yes.
All right, we're sorry that happened, and glad that you're fine, okay? I assume that the jury followed my instructions, and you did not discuss the case among yourselves, and no one's tried to discuss it with you. Am I correct? All right. Sorry we're getting started about 10 minutes late, but I was out here working at 9 o'clock. I had some other matters to take up outside of your presence. We've resolved all that, so we're ready to go this morning now. So court will recognize the state of Mississippi to call their next witness.
Matthew Simon.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give regarding this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, Mr. Chairman.
What is your name?
Matthew Simon.
And Matthew, where are you employed?
I'm employed by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, or the ATF. I'm with the crime lab in Atlanta, Georgia.
And what responsibilities do you hold at the crime lab in Atlanta?
I'm a forensic chemist, and I specialize in explosives analysis and also fire debris analysis.
And how long have you been doing this?
I've been with the ATF for about 9.5 years, and before that I was with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, where I was a drug chemist and also did the fire debris analysis for the entire state for about 8.5 years. So overall I've been in forensics about 17 years.
And would you give the jury, please, the benefit of your education and training?
I have a Bachelor's of Science degree, majoring in chemistry from Grand Valley State University. That's just outside of Grand Rapids, Michigan. After that, basically I was trained by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation in drug identification, further training on fire debris analysis. I've been through multiple courses on instrumentation used, fire investigation. I actually went through the Georgia 2-week class on fire investigation. With ATF, I've mainly been trained in explosives analysis and the use of explosives and stuff like that. So I've pretty much just maintained my fire debris analysis with the ATF.
Are you required to go through continuing training as part of your job?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Matthew, have you ever testified in court?
Yes, I have.
Have you been qualified as an expert in the field of fire debris analysis as well as explosives analysis?
Yes, sir, I have.
Do you know approximately how many times you've testified and how many times you've been declared an expert?
In fire debris analysis, I've testified probably around between 15 and 20 times. I've been declared the expert in every one of them. And for explosives analysis, I've only had one opportunity, and I was declared an expert in that too.
Your Honor, at this time, I would offer Mr. Simon as an expert in the field of fire debris analysis.
All right. Does the defense wish to voir dire the expert on his qualifications?
No, Your Honor.
You accept his expertise then in the field so offered? All right, the court will accept Mr. Simon as an expert in the field so offered.
Thank you, Your Honor. Matthew, were you provided in this particular case a series of items with requests be made for you to analyze them?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay. And what requests were made of you as far as what law enforcement was wanting your analysis to look at?
I received multiple jars and a couple, I believe a can of evidence, and was asked to look for accelerants. Now, accelerants is not a term that I typically use. I use ignitable liquids. That is typically what I look for. I'm looking for anything that may have been added to a sample that could essentially aid in something catching fire. So something like gasoline or diesel fuel, something of that nature is what I'm looking for.
And how do you go about doing that?
So when I receive evidence, it could either be something, like burned carpet, it could be clothing, anything in society that was possibly involved in a fire, I could potentially receive in an evidence container. Well, I can't just take the carpet and run it on one of our, expensive instruments. What I have to do is actually try to extract the evidence. So the way we typically do that, and the way I did this in this case, was I hang a little charcoal strip in the top of the can. Now the nice part about ignitable liquids is they are volatile, and anybody that spilled a little bit of gasoline out when they're trying to fill up their lawnmower or something, that gasoline doesn't sit there forever, it evaporates. Well, that means it's volatile. So what I do is I hang that charcoal strip in the headspace of the can, and I throw that can into an oven. If there's anything that's volatile in that can, it goes up into the headspace and it clings to that charcoal strip. In the morning, I let it sit in the oven overnight. In the morning, I pull it out, allow the evidence to cool, and I remove that charcoal strip and I put it into a vial, and I add a little bit of a solvent to essentially remove that, whatever's on that charcoal strip, remove it, put it into a liquid so that now I can inject it into the instrument that I'm going to use for the analysis. So it's a way for me to basically try to remove what I want to look for, or if anything's present, from all the material that's left behind.
And if I understand your testimony correctly, let's just go to this particular case, you had some clothing, is that correct?
I did. I had some burned clothing.
And let's look more particularly at Exhibit 6.
Yes, sir.
All right, it was some clothing, and so you kept it in the can, and then you put a charcoal strip at the top of the can and put it in an oven. Did I understand your testimony correctly?
Yes, sir.
And what will actually cling to the charcoal strip that you place at the top of the can?
Pretty much anything that is volatile that will essentially evaporate. So, wood and carpet, it's just going to stay down there. Any solvents, anything like gasoline, chemicals that will evaporate and will essentially float up into the headspace can potentially cling to that charcoal strip.
And does it float up as a vapor?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So once you do this for a period of time, what do you do with the charcoal strip?
So the charcoal strip, like I said, comes in the morning when I pull it and allow it to cool. I take it out, I put it into a vial, and I add a solvent. In this case, I use carbon disulfide, and that way it can remove anything that's sticking to that charcoal strip. It removes it and puts it into the solvent.
So if I understand your testimony correctly, whatever volatile liquid you're looking for, once you place the substance in there, it actually removes it from the charcoal strip and it turns it into a liquid form?
Correct. It dissolves it into the liquid.
Okay. Now, how do you go about, at this point, trying to determine what substance may or may not be on that charcoal strip?
So when it's dissolved in the liquid, it is then injected into an instrument that I use. It's called a gas chromatograph mass spectrometer. Now this is essentially two instruments. The first part is a gas chromatograph, which is it's essentially basically an oven that has a very long narrow tube inside of it. I'll call it a column. Now in this column, it allows me to separate the compounds based on essentially on their boiling point. When will they evaporate? They will start moving through that column. So if I have something that's very light and will evaporate really quickly, as soon as I start the oven and I slowly start ramping the temperature, that will start moving, versus something that's relatively heavy is just going to sit there in the beginning of the column until the oven gets hot enough to allow it through. So therefore, I'm allowed to essentially separate multiple different chemicals. At the end of that column, it is injected into a mass spectrometer. This is an instrument that I use to basically identify whatever chemicals are there. In the instrument, I actually bombard the different chemicals with an electron spray, essentially, and it fragments them, and I can measure those fragments. And then I can kind of piece those fragments back together and determine the actual chemical structure of the individual chemical. So I can separate everything in the first part, and then I actually chemically identify every single component. Now that works great, and for a drug chemist, when I was doing it, I got one peak, it came out, I got a nice mass spec of, it said cocaine, okay, identified it as cocaine. The problem I have in fire debris is, let's just say gasoline, for instance. Gasoline is probably made up of 100 or more chemicals. It could be, toluene, xylene. I mean, there's all kinds of different chemicals that are made in there. So I can't just specifically identify every single peak. This is way too much. So what I do is I actually get a pattern. And this pattern is very consistent, and different ignitable liquids are very, very consistent. And so what I do then is compare that to other patterns of known standards that I have run.
And was all of that done here?
Yes, it was.
And once you finished with the mass spectrometer, and did you get a pattern?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you go to the known standards that you use to determine what that pattern represented?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what did it represent?
I had a positive result for gasoline.
So the clothing that you tested, you begin with the charcoal strip.
Yes, sir.
In the oven. You then go to the solvable liquid.
Yes, sir.
And then you inject the solvable liquid into your two different instruments that you use.
It's one instrument in two parts, so it's injected into the one part and it automatically goes into the second one. So yes, sir. But yes, sir.
Okay, so once it moves from part one into the second part, that's where you begin to look for your results.
Correct.
Okay. And the clothing that was submitted as Exhibit 6, do you have an expert opinion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty as to what was contained on the clothing in Exhibit 6?
Yes, I found gasoline on the clothing.
And did you generate a report as a result of this?
Yes, sir, I did.
I'd like to hand you a document and ask you to identify that, please.
Yes, sir. This is a copy of the official report that was generated by me.
Okay, and just looking at it, Matthew, just so the jury will understand, there are numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And did you actually test the other items as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the other items other than Exhibit 6 you did not reach a conclusion on them. Is that correct? Or there was no liquid found?
There was no ignitable liquid found in those exhibits.
And So the pertinent one that we have here is Exhibit 6.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you have reflected that at the bottom of your report, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I would offer this as an exhibit to this witness's testimony.
Any objection?
None, Your Honor.
All right, no objection, be so marked and admitted. I have Exhibit 36, is that right?
Once again, the clothing in Exhibit 6 that you tested contained what?
Contain gasoline.
Turn to the witness, Your Honor.
Right. Cross?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Agent Simon.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Agent Simon, you have been qualified as an expert in fire debris analysis
Yes, sir.
for this case. Can you tell me a little bit about what fire debris analysis is?
So for the most part, fire debris analysis is looking at essentially either burned material, some material that is related to a fire. And typically, a fire debris analysis is looking for ignitable liquids. Anything that was potentially added to a material that could essentially accelerate a fire.
And in this particular case, you examined, by my count, 7 different items. Would
yes,
that be
sir.
correct?
Correct.
Can you take a look at your report there?
I do have a copy of my report here with
Certainly.
me. Yes, sir.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Mr. Simon, I think we probably have the same document, just so that I'm sure.
Yes, yes,
Is that
sir.
the same?
That's
Is
the
that
same
the
one.
report? It's
Yes.
2 pages with your signature on page 2?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you examined those items. Now, the first item is marked Exhibit 5.
Correct.
As you sit here today, that contained a lighter.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you do any testing on that lighter?
So I basically did the exact same process that I explained earlier.
Certainly.
I had the lighter inside a glass jar, and I hung the charcoal strip on the glass jar. What I was asked to do specifically with the lighter was to see, was there anything on the outside of the lighter? I did note that there was actually liquid on the inside of the lighter, but I was not asked to determine, is that truly lighter fluid? I believe it was pretty much assumed that it was.
Certainly. So the lighter in Exhibit 5, at some point you actually hand-delivered that for further testing. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I believe it went to fingerprint analysis and for DNA swabbing in my laboratory.
Are you aware of any testing that was done on that lighter?
I'm pretty sure that those services were performed, but I do not know the results of them.
And you weren't involved in that testing?
No, sir, I was not.
Okay. Now, as far as item 6, that was a metal can containing burnt clothing.
Correct.
Okay. As you sit here today, can you tell me what kind of clothing that was?
I looked over my notes, and all I have is it's burned cloth material that resembles clothing, but I look at so much evidence that I cannot remember off the top of my head what exactly it is.
Sure. Now, was it clothing or did it resemble clothing?
I have in my notes that it appeared to be burned clothing.
It appeared to be burnt clothing.
Yes, sir.
And do your notes indicate anything further than that?
No, sir.
Okay. That is the item that contained gasoline.
Yes, sir.
Now, item 7 was a glass jar containing burned hair.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you went through the same process with that item as well?
Yes, sir.
No
I did not.
ignitable liquids on that item?
Correct. I did not find anything.
Certainly. And that would be the same for items 8, 9, and 10,
Correct.
which also were glass jars containing burnt clothing.
Yes, sir.
Now, was that burnt clothing or did it resemble burned clothing?
Again, with that, I had most of this material was relatively charred. That it appeared to be clothing items, or it was just burned cloth material. I cannot identify exactly what it is.
Okay, but it was burnt cloth material?
Yes, sir.
And your best guess would be that it was clothing?
Yes, sir.
But as you sit here today, you can't testify with certainty that the items that you examined were in fact clothing, can you?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you actually, and I believe I asked you this, sir, but items 8, 9, and 10 also contain no ignitable liquids. Did I say that correctly?
Correct. I did not find any ignitable liquid.
Okay. Now, let me ask you something. Some of these items were contained in glass jars,
Yes, sir.
and then item 6 was a metal can.
Correct.
Do you know why they were packaged differently?
No, sir. That would be up to the agents that actually packaged it.
Okay.
Both containers are suitable for ignitable liquid.
Certainly.
So when you're testing for fire debris analysis, you have to have a vapor-tight container. So paper bags and plastic bags are essentially breathable. So if you have something that can evaporate, you don't want it leaving the container. So typically mason jars, and then actually when I was at GBI, I saw more mason jars. At ATF, I see more metal cans, but both are suitable containers for fire debris analysis.
And then 11 was a box containing a green blanket.
Yes, sir.
Okay, did you test that item?
Yes, sir, I did.
Now, what kind of box was that?
I believe it was just a cardboard box.
Okay, do you know why it was packaged differently than would a box be a vapor-proof?
No, sir, it would not.
Okay.
My assumption, again, this would have to go on the agent, my assumption would be this is a very large blanket.
Sure.
And fire debris cans and jars are typically not big enough. In fact, when I did the testing on this, I had to cut the blanket in half and put it into each half into a 5-gallon bucket to do the testing on it.
Certainly. Now, there's an item that's unnumbered on your report. It says sample.
Yes, sir.
And it's an empty glass jar and has in parentheses control. What does that mean?
In this case, the agents who packaged the evidence, they actually took one of their jars, capped it, and sent it. So that way, if for some reason there was anything present in that container, it would then aid me in, was there any contributions from the container to the fire debris analysis? And the jar, it did have, I believe, I can't remember, it was a large phthalate, but it was a very large, heavy compound that was actually detected. So therefore, I was able to make sure, hey, that material was actually contributed from the jar and not from the fire debris analysis. So it's just a way to ensure that the container did not provide any of the ignitable liquids.
Okay. Now, Agent Simon, you indicated early in your testimony when being questioned by the prosecution, it says you can't take your carpet and run it through one of your expensive machines.
Yes, sir.
What did you mean by that, sir?
So typically when you have burned evidence, you have a whole lot of material that's there. I can't just chop it up or put it in a blender or do something to be able to inject it into an instrument. There's just too much garbage left behind. So with fire debris analysis, and that's one of the things that does aid us, is that pretty much every compound that could be added in terms of a liquid to accelerate a fire in terms of ignitable liquids are volatile. We can actually use that to try to remove it versus having to, if I were to try to add a solvent straight to a bunch of burned carpet, I may extract stuff that just totally, jams up the instrument and basically makes it inoperable. So it's basically a way that we can clean up the samples and not destroy the instruments.
Certainly. Now, your report lists exhibits 5 through 11 in a sample.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why does the numbering start with number 5?
That's the way they were. That's the way all the containers had specific numbers on them.
Okay.
And I usually keep it in sequential order.
So you didn't assign those exhibit numbers. You just They
No, sir.
they were pre-numbered when you received them?
Yes, sir.
Now, with this, these were the only items you tested?
I believe, for this exhibit, I believe there was actually one other exhibit that actually did come in later on.
Certainly. Do you recall what that was?
I believe it was fire debris from the vehicle.
From the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Did you test that?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what was the results of that?
I found gasoline in that as well.
Found gasoline. Is there a report that will reflect that?
Yes, sir, there was.
Okay. Now, the blanket in exhibit number 11, which was cut in half,
Yes, sir.
what kind of blanket was that?
I was told it was a blanket from, I believe it was from the fire department. You know, this is again speculation on my part. It was a blanket from the fire department that was used to wrap the victim.
Okay.
That was my understanding.
And that blanket contained no gasoline either?
I did not find anything.
Okay. Now, you said it was a blanket used to wrap the victim in this case, which would have been Jessica Chambers?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Would that understanding have come from the persons who submitted those items to you?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Ask court's indulgence.
Yes, sir.
Agent Selman, you actually, other than the reports that you have for items 5 through 11, do you have any additional reports with you today?
I do have a copy of the report from the fire, from the vehicle.
Okay. Do you have the report from I guess the report I'm actually referring to would have been from when you actually did the swabs on the lighter?
I did not do the swabs on the lighter.
But you actually hand-delivered them to the person who did that?
So after I performed my analysis, I turned the evidence back into our evidence room, and I believe it was swabbed after the fingerprint analysis. I had no part of that.
My person witness, Your Honor.
You may.
We'll take a look at that, Agent.
Yes, sir. This is a report from our fingerprint specialist.
So it indicates at the top that the swabs were hand-delivered by you to them.
No, sir. This is indicating that, because this is the exact same, basically the same thing I have on my report, that the exhibit was that is an interesting statement, but ultimately what they're saying is that the evidence was submitted and I'm the one that received it in the lab. And this is for that exhibit as well as all the rest of them. I did not actually hand them the specific evidence.
Okay, but this document does say that, doesn't it?
That's the way it actually reads to me, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right. Redirect.
No, sir, I have no redirect.
What instructions would you give this witness?
Your Honor, Ms. Simon be found excused, return to Atlanta.
All right, Sam, thank you, sir. You're finally excused.
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
May call your next witness.
Your Honor, at this time I would offer in the evidence, and this is actually contained in the court file, however, for the jury's explanation. We had an order signed by agreement by Ms. Palmer and myself on October 6, 2017, last week, for an order of stipulation of 6 separate items. I would offer this particular order into evidence, along with, contained in this order is going to be the surveillance system that's already in evidence, along with 4 discs, one containing the phone tolls or records and location data for the cellular device belonging to Jessica Chambers, a separate disk containing the text message for the cellular device belonging to Jessica Chambers, a third disk with the phone tolls or records and location data for the cellular device belonging to Quentin Tellis, And finally, a disc containing a download or dump performed by U.S. Marshal Service agent Nick Valance for the cellular device belonging to Clinton Tellis, and also documents turned over to Discovery regarding Green Dot records from December 6, 2014. I would offer this order, a copy of this order for the jury to describe what they have in evidence, and also the phone records for both phones and the Green Dot records.
All right, there's going to be two separate exhibits that you're offering then?
It's going to be 6 separate exhibits, Your Honor.
6?
Yes, sir.
All right.
It's the order and 5 separate exhibits.
All right, any objection, counsel?
No, sir, Your Honor.
All right. Being no objection, they'll be marked and admitted. That'll be 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, something like that. Okay.
All right. Call Tim Douglas.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give involving this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Good morning, sir.
What is your name?
Tim Douglas.
And Tim, where are you employed?
I'm a special agent with the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, assigned as a task force agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
Timmy, how long have you been with the Mississippi? You started with Mississippi Highway Patrol.
I have, yes, sir.
And how long were you with the Highway Patrol before moving to MBI?
12 years, sir. And I've been with MBI for 12 years.
What are your primary responsibilities as an agent with MBI?
Predominantly, I'm a homicide and violent crime investigator. So homicide, kidnappings, violent gun crimes with ATF.
How many, let's take a rough guesstimate, how many homicides do you think you've worked through your 12-year career?
It's over 300 deaths, Mr. Champion, over 200 of which would be homicides. Excuse me.
Were you advised back in December of 2014 of what had happened to Jessica Chambers?
I was, yes, sir. Major Barry Thompson with the Panola County Sheriff's Department called me on Saturday evening. It was approximately 10 o'clock in the evening. Told me the young lady had been burned in a car fire and that she had been transported to the Med in Memphis. I didn't respond at that time. I was serving as the special agent in charge of the northern region of Mississippi for MBI at that time. So I sent an agent out to assist them because at that time wasn't a homicide.
And who did you send?
Special Agent Heath Farish.
So you were the boss of and explain to the jury just a little bit, because they've got the same thing in Pike County. Explain to them how the Highway Patrol system works as far as what you're in command of.
Okay. MBI is a branch of the Department of Public Safety, which we're made up of state. You have to be a state trooper to become a state investigator. We're broken up into 3 regions. So you have the southern region, which is a coastal region. I believe it's the region that Pike County falls under. Then you have the central region, Jackson and surrounding counties. And then the northern region is composed of the northern 9 districts of Mississippi. So basically from Highway 82 north to Tennessee, and then from Alabama to Arkansas.
In each area of the state has substations.
That's correct.
Such as, and they're named by troops, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And our area is Troop E.
That's right, yes,
Do you
sir.
know what the area might be, Pike County?
It would be Troop M out of Brookhaven.
And each troop has an MBI team, is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay. And at the time, how many troops do we have in this normal area up here in North Mississippi?
Three troops in the northern region.
All right, one here and then one here in Batesville, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Greenwood, Batesville, and New Albany.
In New Albany.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And those 3 troops and the MBI investigators are responsible for covering all of the violent crime homicides or whatever they're requested to do in
Yes,
the counties north of Highway 82.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you were the commander of MBI for the 3 troops, is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir. I supervised approximately 25 to 30 employees because it included the crime scene unit also.
Okay. So on the night of December the 6th, were you advised of what had happened to Jessica?
I was, yes, sir.
Okay. I believe you testified a moment ago. At the time, you didn't come out because it was not a homicide, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Because I was responsible for such a large area, I would respond to major homicides. I was also, and still am, part of the major crime unit, but I would respond to homicides. And so I didn't respond that night because a young lady was still alive. I said the crime scene, or offered the crime scene unit. I don't think they responded that night, but sent Agent Fish out to assist the sheriff's department.
And just so the jury understands, the NBI doesn't originate cases. Y'all are asked to come in and assist. Is that correct?
Pretty much, yes, sir. We'll do some public corruption, but predominantly we're a violent crime squad.
Now, at some point, were you advised that Jessica had actually died?
The next morning, early the next morning, Agent Ferris called me and said that Jessica had died as a result of her wounds, of the car fire. And so I came out that morning and began to assist in the investigation.
And this would have been Sunday, is that correct?
That's correct, Sunday the 7th, yes, sir.
And what did you do when you initially began to assist?
We met at the sheriff's department. I wanted to get a rundown of the things that had taken place. I wanted to look at the crime scene photos and have an understanding of. I actually rode down to the crime scene to just familiarize myself. We began what's called an investigative plan. So basically, tell me everything you have. Let's put it up on the board. Let's see what we have, what we need, what we don't have. At that time, it was, I believe, myself and Agent Farish, members of the Sheriff's Department and members of the United States Marshal Service. They came in, I think, right around noon on Sunday.
Okay. And what was the purpose of each of these agencies coming in?
Because it was such a heinous crime, my theory, thank you, sir, has always been you can't ever have enough help. So I'm not saying I was there to coordinate. Myself and Major Thompson at the time began coordinating the investigation. But it was to call in, to find the resources we need, like I say, to identify what we had, what we didn't have, what we could do, what we needed to do. And so I began calling different agencies saying, hey, we need some help. At some time, maybe Sunday or Monday, the State Fire Marshal's office got involved. I don't remember the exact date. But we began calling other agencies to assist us.
Okay. And you mentioned the marshals. When you begin an investigation with technology the way it is today, what are some of the things that you want to know about the deceased person?
The first thing we did was get an exit warrant for her phone records. I believe that gave us the prior 24 hours, the 24 hours prior to her death, of her incoming, outgoing calls, text messages, SMS, MMS, that sort of thing.
All right, you said SMS. What is that? Or just, is it text messages?
It's a text message, yes, sir.
Okay, it's a phone term for text message.
That's correct,
right?
yes, sir.
All right. So, and why are you wanting to know all this information about what may be contained in her phone?
Basically, I wanted to know, the investigative team wanted to know who were the last people that Jessica talked to, who she was with, that sort of thing. That way you develop a witness list or potential suspect list, potential witness list. It allowed us to begin to start putting her day together, her past 24 hours. I was told that she was found alone on that rural road, I believe Heron Road in Cortland. And so we want to know who she was with, who she'd been with, who would have seen her last. Start putting her day together.
That's that is absolutely a standard technique.
Absolutely.
In investigations 101, is it not?
Especially when there's no eyewitnesses, yes, sir, absolutely. It's to reconstruct, if you will, the victims, their day prior to their death.
And what aid can the U.S. Marshals give you as far as the phone data?
The Marshals are experts in receiving phone tolls, serving the phone companies with subpoenas, receiving the tolls, dumping it, and when I say dumping, taking that data and dumping it into a computer. And I'm not the best technology guy in the world, but you'll hear testimony, I'm sure later on, about raw records and that type thing. So the phone company sends it in raw records and is put into a database to be able for a layman like me to understand these records, times, dates, calls, things like that. They have databases where you can go in, you dump a phone number in, and you get subscriber information. we shortly after that Sunday, I called Paul Rowlett with the United States Department of Justice. He's an intel analyst with the U.S. Attorney's Office over at Oxford. Paul is, in my mind, the best intel analyst that I've ever worked with in my life. Paul has a database from the Department of Justice that, quite frankly, the state of Mississippi can't afford, and I don't believe, not sure we'd have anybody smart enough to run it, if you want to know the truth, if we were able to afford it. So we feed all this information to the marshals and to Mr. Rowlett, and they dump it into the computer and begin to analyze these raw records and put it in a usable format that people like me can use in an investigation.
And we're talking right at this point in time strictly her phone. When you say tolls, we mean who she talked to, who she was texting, and those kinds of things. When you're talking about phone tolls and the raw data, and just basically we're getting to the point where we're able to identify who she was talking to, who she was texting, so that we could go out and interview these people to figure out what her last 24 hours was.
Yes, sir. To bring it down where I can understand it, send this down to them. They send it back to me and said, hey, she called them, they called her. She texted them, they text her, and she was at this location, that location, that location, based on cell tower data. So that's, yes, sir. That's a layman's version of it, yes, sir.
Okay. And I think we all need the layman's version, probably. I know I do.
Absolutely, so do I, sir.
Okay. Tim, did y'all also begin to conduct interviews of folks in the Cortland area?
We did, yes, sir.
Okay. And at some point was Quentin Tellis a person that needed to be interviewed?
He was, yes, sir. We recognized from the phone tolls that Mr. Tellis had talked to her, that they talked and texted to her. Like I say, at that point, we just had the prior 24 hours. We also, I think the marshals are the ones that served the order to get her actual phone records, so it would have backed up prior to that 24 hours. But Mr. Tellis, well, he was on the phone tolls, like I say, incoming, outgoing calls, incoming, outgoing text. We also talked to Keisha Meyer. Keisha was what I found to be the person who was her best friend. I talked to Keisha Meyer first, as far as Mr. Tellis goes, and Keisha said, well, Saturday morning, we stopped by and picked this black guy up, had some dreads, light-skinned black guy. He rode around with us. His name was Quinn Tellis. And so that's how Quinn, I came on the radar, but just, was a person, not even of interest at the point, just a person to, someone to interview.
Well, I mean, with obviously at this point, you're trying to piece together the last 24 hours of her life.
Yes, sir.
And I believe you testified a moment ago that Quinn was actually in that last 24 hours of her life, according to her phone record.
He absolutely was, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you were talking about, just change this subject real fast, you're talking about orders and everything else. When you are investigating a case, do you obtain subpoenas or court orders signed by judges in order to obtain all of these records?
We did for everything except that exigent warrant. Exigent it's a life or death matter. It's a serious thing, and the phone company will give us, that's why they'll give us the prior, 24 hours. We say, hey, we need an exigent warrant. We've got a killer on the loose somewhere. Somebody murdered this young girl. So we filed that. They gave us that 24-hour window, and then after that, you have to file, actually file a phone order. It's provided by the Marshal Service to us. It was signed by a circuit court judge. I can't remember exactly which judge, but it was signed by a court of record, served on the phone companies, and then we begin getting these full records from this phone company.
So when you're dealing with, and I believe Jessica was Verizon, is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
And I believe Quentin was AT&T, is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
But you've also got C-Spire, you've got, my mind escapes me, some of the other providers.
Yes, sir.
But if I understand your testimony correctly, whenever you're wanting to get the full information concerning this one particular phone number, then you're required to get court orders in order to do that.
That's correct. The phone companies don't just offer that private information. That's why we get a judge to sign it, saying, hey, these guys need this. And they send it to us in a relatively short period of time with the phone order.
Now, we talked about interviewing Quentin. I'll get back to that in a minute. But were you advised of what some of the firefighters were telling law enforcement, what they thought they heard her say at the scene?
I was, yes, sir. I'm sorry, go ahead. No, sir, go ahead, sir.
And what name were we beginning to work on at this point in time?
And on that Sunday, we obligated ourselves to the phone records, to that exigent, her exigent, the phone records we received from that exigent warrant. Sorry, let me slow down. You can't believe or start to fathom the amount of calls that we had coming in, people giving us tips. We would take those tips, we started running those things down. Several of the firemen were coming out of the sheriff's department, and I know quite a few of them. I've been in this community most of my life. And they said, Mr. Tim, we think we heard her say Eric or Derek. We were out in the hall Monday, so that would have been the 8th. One of the young guys, one of the young firemen, I said, tell me what you heard. He said, Mr. Tim, I think she said Eric, but we were trying to get her name out of her, and she said her last name was Yombers. And so that was, I saw the photographs. I saw the scene photographs of Jessica. I'm in no way a medical expert. I'm the farthest thing. I can put a Band-Aid on you. That's about all I can do. But just from a common sense standpoint in law enforcement, seeing the photographs, seeing the shape that she was in, talking to some of the guys on the scene, talking about the shape she was in, we said, hey, we've got to make sure we look for every Eric and Derek. That's our first clue. That's our first little piece of evidence. But at the same time, seeing the shape that she's in and hearing one of these firemen say, I think she said Yombers. I said, well, maybe she couldn't pronounce her names right. I don't know. I don't know the shape she was in, taking the shock factor and all. So we didn't limit ourselves to Eric and Derek. We walked into this thing open-minded with Eric and Derek, understanding the shape she was in, knowing a little bit about shock, realizing she was in shock. And at the same time, like I say, you can't even start to fathom the amount of tips that were called into the sheriff's office. And that was part of this investigative plan, Mr. Champion. And it expanded quickly. I believe maybe the third day I called the FBI, I called the ATF, U.S. Marshals already there, and I started calling. I have a lot of friends at the feds that are friends, and I said, hey boys, we got to have some help. This thing's a whole lot bigger than we are. I want all the help I can get. So our investigation actually absolutely expanded to every tip that we got, every Eric and Derek. I called the Fusion Center in Jackson.
Let's stop right there.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, due to the initial clue that you had was Eric or Derek. Is that safe to say?
When you say clue, that was a big part initially. Yes, sir. Okay. At the same time, I mean, dying declarations have been very important to me in my investigations in the past. But at the same time, we did not limit ourselves to a dying declaration of a young girl who was in the shape she was in, frankly because of the Yomber statement.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And but obviously Eric or Derek was definitely being looked into.
100%. Yes, sir.
As a matter of fact, you contacted the Mississippi Fusion Center, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, explain to the jury what the Fusion Center is.
The Fusion Center, so put together. It's a group of people run under, they come under the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, Department of Homeland Security, Mississippi Department of Homeland Security. They're analysts down there from MBI, MBN, which is the Bureau of Narcotics. FBI has analysts down there. I'm trying to think of I think the marshals may have. Anyway, different, Hines SO, Jackson PD, they lend intel analysts out there to the Fusion Center. The Fusion.
Where is it?
It's in Pearl, actually, by the Fire Academy.
Okay.
They have access to computer databases. They can run tag information, personal information, tax records, all the public records that you get, Facebook, all the public, private records that you get. These guys have these computer systems where they can peck it in. And so I called down there, I said, look, I'd like for you to send me the name, every Eric and Derek, name, address, Facebook, phone, whatever you have on these people within Panola County. Every Eric and Derek. They said, you want just black? I said, I want black folks, white folks, whatever you got. I want to know who Eric, give me every Eric and Derek that's in Panola County. That's where we started. That was that Monday, where we started with Eric and Derek.
Now, the Fusion Center is a tool for law enforcement, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And is it, when you get the Amber Alerts and things like that on your phone, I think everybody has seen those Amber Alerts that pop up on our phone. Do the things like that come out of the Fusion Center?
It's actually the Amber Alerts are run from MBI headquarters in Jackson. The Fusion Center has a lot to do with them, but that's actually initiated by actual MBI agents out of Jackson.
Okay. And MBI is basically in control of the Fusion Center, is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay. So Tim, at this point, we are absolutely exploring Eric or Derek, is that correct?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And you've requested from the Fusion Center any information on anybody in Panola County with Eric or Derek?
Absolutely.
But not only that, are you in the process also of looking and trying to talk to other people that may or may not be named Eric or Derek?
Absolutely. Like I say, Mr. Chairman, we didn't limit ourselves. I learned, I tell folks, we're not good. We just get a lot of practice. So after working over 200 homicides and over 300 death investigations, don't limit yourself to anything. Go in with an open mind, get as much help as you can get, analyze everything you have. So we didn't limit ourselves to anything, Mr. Chairman.
And when you were able to obtain the last 24 hours of Jessica's cell phone records, did Quentin Tellis' name come up at this point?
It did, yes, sir.
Okay. And did he, in fact, come to the Sheriff's Department to talk with you and Major Thompson?
He did, yes, sir.
Okay. Would you tell the jury a little bit about what he told you when you were interviewing him as far as his day with Jessica?
Yes, sir. Quentin stated that Jessica and Keisha Meyer had picked him up on the morning of the 6th at his home, which is on Highway 51 in Cortland, Mississippi, just beside Carlisle Road, across from the M&M gas station. Quentin said that he got in the back seat. I think he said cut some blocks. So they made some loops just out in the countryside. He stated that Keisha and Jessica smoked a blunt. I asked him if he smoked, and he said, no, sir, I didn't smoke any, I just rode. And he said, we just rode around for an hour or so, and rode around and talked, listened to music, and I watched the girl smoke a blunt. Would you like me to talk about the route that they took, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's a place you'll hear, I'm sure quite a bit later on, called the Sandbox, which is going to be east of Cortland. It's just a community. It's an old gravel pit. That's the reason they call it the Sandbox. Folks live in. So that they went out east, went up north of Cortland, went out east, and he specified the Sandbox. And they came back around through Cortland. I'm sure there's a map in here somewhere. I don't know if you've seen one. But they went west of Cortland on Heron Road. And Mr. Tellis made a point to state to myself and Major Thompson that he said, we rode by the place where Jessica got killed twice. We passed it, and I said, well, Quentin, there's nothing out there, isn't it? He said, no, so we was just riding. He said, we rode out there, passed it, and rode a little piece. And I mean, it's cotton fields and bean fields once you get west of there. He said, then we turned around and came back by. And I said, then one day, he said, well, they dropped me back off the house.
All right, Tim, I know you weren't there, but when you just describe these various places, the jury has actually been there.
Okay, all right.
So when you speak with the scene on Heron Road, where Jessica was, just for your understanding, the jury has already been to these various places.
Okay, so you understand how rural it is if you've been out there. When you go farther west, it gets a lot more rural. You get out of those pine trees and that wooded area, and you drop off into cotton fields and bean fields and what have you. So they were just what Quentin said, busting loops, making some loops. Thank you, sir.
Did he indicate to you what time, or approximately what time, he got out of the car with Jessica and Keisha?
It was before noon.
Okay. Did you ask him whether or not he saw Jessica the rest of the day?
I did, yes, sir. I asked him, I said, when's the last time? We talked about several things. I said, when's the last time you saw her? Initially, he said, I didn't see her anymore that day. And he said, no, wait a minute. He said, she texted me and asked me for some money. And right after lunch, I walked over to, because like I say, M&M store, since you've been there, you're familiar with where he lives, store across the road, and the big gravel drive there. He said, I walked across the road, and I just threw $10 in her car. came back to my house because my girlfriend, Jamie Shaw, was over there, and I didn't want to get caught. So I just walked over there, threw it in. He said that would have been right after lunch sometime. Excuse me.
And did you ask him whether or not he saw Jessica after that?
Absolutely. And he said, it's the last time I saw her. I said, Quinn, be sure. He said, that's the last time I saw her, Mr. Tim. I didn't, after I put that money in her car, I hung out with my friends and my girlfriend the rest of the day, and I didn't see her anymore that day. That's the last time I saw Jessica Chambers.
And this was what day?
This was Saturday the 6th.
No. What day did you interview him?
Oh, let's see, the 10th, Mr. Chairman, so that would have been Wednesday.
So she dies Sunday morning, and he comes in with you 3 days later.
Yes, sir.
And what is when does he tell you was the last time he saw Jessica?
Saturday, right after lunch, when he threw that money in her car at M&M grocery store.
So it should have been definitely fresh on his mind
It absolutely would have been fresh on his mind.
the last time he saw Jessica.
And if I could say this, 3 days later, we interviewed Mr. Tellis. Mr. Tellis was on her phone records. So I want you to understand that we were running down every lead we could. We didn't just start with those phone records. I guess the point I'm trying to make. It's the reason it took us till Wednesday to get to Quentin. We were getting these calls. I can't tell you the interviews I did between starting Sunday after lunch up until I talked to Quentin or Major Thompson. I talked to Mr. Tellis Wednesday. So I mean, it was can to can. So I just want to put that out there. It wasn't. He was very significant because he was on our phone records, but we had more leads coming in that we were running down first.
But when you interviewed him a mere 4 days after Jessica was burned, what occurred should have been fresh on his mind.
100%.
Did he ever indicate to you on the 10th that he saw Jessica Chambers after he threw the money in the car right after lunch?
Absolutely not. It was a definitive. I hit him on it. So I'll say hit him on it. Nail that point down. When, Quentin, make sure, when was the last time you said, Mr. Tim, the last time I saw Jessica was right after lunch when I threw that $10 in her car because Jamie was over the house and I didn't want to get caught. And so I spent the rest of the afternoon with Jamie and with Big Mike and several of these other guys. That's the last time I saw her.
Okay. Now, Tim, the investigation continues on, and I won't go into each and every one of them, but there were multiple leads that occurred in this case to where we had a positive attitude that we were fixing to solve the case. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were also in the process of interviewing multiple Erics and Derricks. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And did y'all take some DNA samples?
We did.
From people?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you access more phone records from during the course of the investigation?
We did. I can't remember someone else. Maybe Mr. Rowlett would be able to testify to the actual number of phone records. It was in the thousands, Mr. Chairman, that were analyzed, subscriber information received from phone companies. Well over 100 interviews. I can't put my finger, 115, 120, something like that. People that were interviewed. Yes, sir.
And not only were people interviewed here, where else did you go to interview people?
I believe it was December the 29th. It was just before the first of the year. Myself and a couple of FBI agents went to Des Moines, Iowa, spent a couple of days up there. We had gotten what we believed to be a viable lead. We spent several days in Des Moines, drove up one night, drove back 2 or 3 days later.
Were you able to eliminate that viable lead?
Absolutely.
I believe you also at one point went to Tennessee.
Yes, sir. Spent several days in Chattanooga, Tennessee, interviewing, again, what we thought was a viable lead. When I say run it dry, investigate it till it's eliminated. And so we ran that lead dry.
And then we also had, were people continuously calling in tips?
Yes, sir.
And at some point, did the tips begin to start drying up?
It did. It started waning, yes, sir.
And just so the jury will have a good idea of what it was like early on, was there a lot of speculation about various people in the community?
Absolutely. Everybody suspected everyone. No disrespect to the family, but, people came in talking about maybe one of our parents did it. We believe this parent did it. We believe that parent did it. We believe it was this or that. We had people calling from Canada, sending emails from Canada. Lord, we had some psychics. Like I said, you can't imagine some of the foolishness of the tips that we've received, as well as some very well-meaning people said, hey, I saw Jessica here, I saw Jessica there. You need to talk to this person. You need to talk to that person. And I'd say outside the psychics, we ran down every lead that we had.
Now, as far as the Erics or Derricks were concerned, do you have any idea about how many of them that you may have interviewed?
There were over 10, I can tell you that. I interviewed quite a few myself. One young man in particular, and I don't want to start calling these men's names unless, okay. These men were eliminated, so I don't want to call their name from the stand. One young man I spent several days on. Several days. Had him at the jail several days. But
Interviewing him,
yes, sir. Yes, sir, I'm sorry. Went, spoke to his family, his buddies. I had this guy, pretty much his family in an uproar because I just wasn't going to leave it alone. He had some interaction with Jessica, for sure. He absolutely was eliminated 100%. Just bottom line, when Jessica was murdered, this young man was at home rubbing his mother's feet. I mean, that's the depth that we went to with some of these Erics and Derricks. Now, the U.S. Marshals interviewed some of these Erics and Derricks. Myself, Major Thompson did. Our investigative team, so you'll understand, at one point, it was when that first week, and it carried on into the second week, I looked around one day, and there were somewhere in excess of 50, I'd say 60-something, state, local, federal agents. We had several U.S. attorneys. Mr. Chairman spent just about every day with us. So our war room, if you will, was about the size of this area right here. And it was absolutely full of people, and that was a whole part of that investigative plan. We had large boards on every wall, and we'd get this lead in, and it'd be plastered on the wall. And we'd say, you go do this, you go do that. And I'm not a good administrator. I'm a foot soldier, if you will. So as those leads would come in, I'd take some and I'd say, hey, me and you, we're going to do this. So everybody was doing something every day.
Okay. But none of that was getting anywhere. Is that correct?
It was all running into dead leads, yes, sir.
Okay. And this continued on through the summer.
It did.
Of 2015.
That's correct.
And eventually in September, October of 2015, did you and Paul and Scott make a decision to go back and look at records?
We did.
Basically start over.
Absolutely. At this point, outside of one or two different homicides and a couple other violent crimes, myself and Agent Meadows, Paul Rowlett, our life was dedicated to Jessica Chambers. I'm trying to think of a good way to say it. I don't want to disrespect anybody. The glamour of it had worn off a little bit. And so, and of course, some of these other agencies, they had other things to do, other priorities. Jessica was our priority. That's all, like I say, outside of 2 or 3 other killings and murders and some violent crimes, it's what we did every day. We had exhausted every lead. We had exhausted at that point, believe we'd exhausted every phone record. We'd exhausted everything we had. We met on a daily basis. And it was Paul. Paul said, boys, I think I need to go back and start looking through these phone records, and let's just start at the top again. We said, hey, man, that, sounds good to us. We're not getting anywhere where we are. So that's where that began from. Let's just start back from day one. Let's get these phone records out. Let's get these location records out. And let's look and see if we missed anything.
Do the location records assist you with pinpointing as best you can the locations of cell phones at a particular time when a call was made, a text was made, or when it's merely checking in with the tower?
They do, yes.
Okay. So when you speak of location records, it's a cell phone company provided information as to where that particular phone is as best they can.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
And it all depends, and again, I won't get into the technical side. Yeah,
got-
absolutely.
Paul's gonna help with that.
That's right. It just, depends how close are you, how many towers, all different. But yes, sir, to the best of their ability, this is data that comes from the phone company, saying that the tower says you were here, shaking hands, they call it. Your phone was shaking hands with that tower.
So at some point, did Paul come in and say to you, and I don't want you to get into what he said.
Sure.
But did you realize that Quentin Tellis may be more involved, or we may need more information from Quentin Tellis than he had previously given us?
Yes, sir.
All right, kind of tell the jury what that, and I say for a second, an aha moment is.
It was a late night call. We had a lot of them. Mr. Rowlett was bad to be up on his computer at 2 or 3 in the morning sometimes, and we get a call saying, boys, he called late one night. I couldn't tell you exactly what it was, and he said, boys, I think we got something. I said, what you got, Paul? And he said, man, I just looked back over Quentin's phone records, and he said, they called me Timmy D. He said, Timmy D, didn't he tell you that last time that he saw Jessica was at that store right across from his house? I said, yeah, right after lunch. He said, did you lock him in on that? I said, he was adamant about it, Paul. That's the last place Quentin said he saw Jessica. He said, we need to have a meeting first thing in the morning. Y'all need to get up to my office. I got something. And so that's what led to myself and Agent Meadows meeting Mr. Rowlett at his office, the U.S. Attorney's office, that next morning.
Okay. And based on that meeting, was a decision made to re-interview Quentin Tellis?
It was.
Okay. And had you learned that Quentin had moved to Monroe, Louisiana?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And was a plan made to actually go to Monroe and interview Quentin Tellis?
Yes, sir. Shortly after Mr. Rowlett uncovered this information.
Okay. And did you in fact go to Monroe, Louisiana?
We did, yes, sir.
Okay. And this was November the 2nd, is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
And did Quentin Tellis actually agree to give you an interview?
He did, absolutely.
Your Honor, may we approach?
You may.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to take a few minutes for the prosecution to set up the equipment that they need to continue examining Mr. Douglas. So I'm going to go on and let's take our morning recess. It's a little early for it, but we're going to put you in recess now, and I will send for you when we're ready, all right? Thank you. Courtroom will remain in order till the jury's excused. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I trust you followed my instructions and you've not discussed the case among yourselves. Am I correct? All right. You may proceed, Mr. Champion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tim, when the decision was made, I believe we broke, the decision had been made to go to Monroe, Louisiana, and speak with Quentin Tellis. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And did you travel along with Agent Meadows from ATF, the intelligence analyst Paul Rowlett from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and myself to Monroe, Louisiana?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you, in fact, meet with Quentin Tellis?
We did, yes, sir.
And the interviews in Monroe in November lasted how many days?
2, sir. November 2nd and November 3rd.
And when you began to talk with Quentin, did you advise him of his constitutional rights?
I did, yes, sir.
I want to hand you a document and ask you if you can identify that, please.
Yes, sir. This is what's referred to as Miranda warning. It's constitutional rights about remaining silent.
And what date is that?
That is November the 2nd, 2015.
Okay. And did you sign it?
I did, yes, sir.
And did Quentin Tellis sign it?
He did, yes, sir.
And did he agree to talk with you?
He did, yes, sir.
Now, when you went back on November, well, excuse, what time was that?
That was at 2:14 p.m.
Okay. And when you went back the next day on November the 3rd, did he agree to talk with you on that day as well?
He did, yes, sir.
And did you re-advise him of his constitutional rights?
I did, yes, sir.
I want to hand you a document and ask if you could identify that, please.
Different type form, same thing. Miranda warning, constitutional rights about the right to remain silent, having an attorney.
And did he sign that?
He did, yes, sir.
And did you sign
I
that?
did, yes, sir.
Your Honor, I would offer these two documents as an exhibit to this witness's testimony.
Any objection? None, Your Honor. All right, be so marked and admitted.
Do you want this one or second?
We can do this one. That's okay with court.
Yeah, that'd be fine. That'd be 43, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And were the interviews, and I believe you also went back to interview him in January of 2016, is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
And did you also advise him in January of his constitutional rights?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And did he agree to talk with you?
Yes, sir, he did.
I would hand you that document and ask if you can identify it.
Yes, sir. Again, a Miranda warning is constitutional rights, signed by myself and Quentin Tellis on January the 27th, 2016 at 9:30 a.m. in the morning.
Okay. And did he sign that?
He did, yes, sir.
And did you sign that?
I did, yes, sir.
Your Honor, I would offer this as an exhibit to this witness's testimony.
Any objection, counsel?
Your Honor, I'd like to review that document just briefly.
All right.
Just make sure.
Thank you, sir.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, being no objection, it'll be marked and admitted.
Tim, were each of these interviews recorded?
Yes, sir.
And you have and I believe we're talking about 3 different days worth of interviews, is that correct?
That's correct.
Was one of them November 2nd?
Yes, sir.
Was another interview November 3rd?
Yes, sir.
And then the third interview was January the 27th.
Of 16. The
Of
first
16.
two 15, the last one 16. Yes, sir.
And were those interviews, I believe I just asked you if they were recorded.
They were, yes, sir.
And were they downloaded onto a thumb drive, and have you reviewed that thumb drive?
Yes, sir.
And what is that in your hand right there?
It's a manila envelope with the dates, an interview on them. There's a thumb drive inside the envelope, sir.
And is that the thumb drive that contains the interviews of the 3 different days?
Yes, sir.
And you have reviewed those?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I would offer the thumb drive as an exhibit to this witness's testimony.
Objection, counsel? All right, be marked and admitted.
Thank you, sir. Pardon? Okay.
How do you normally begin your interviews? Do you just try to get a rapport going with the person you're talking to?
I do, sure. It's not just to sit down and, if I can say, from the time I met Quentin, the first day I met him on December the 10th of 2014, Quentin and I became friends. We had a good relationship with each other. That continued, you'll see throughout these videos. Quentin and I already had made friends, and so we sat and I just shot the bull a little bit. I don't just go right into facts, no, sir.
Okay. But at some point you begin to, and you've got a method to what you do, is that correct?
Sure.
Okay. And is one of the methods putting a person you're talking with at ease?
Sure.
Okay. And did you do that here?
I did, yes, sir.
And who was with you actually in the initial stages of the interviews?
Special Agent Meadows began the interviews with me.
Okay. And at some point in time, as the jury will see, somebody else comes into the room to talk with Quentin with you. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Paul Rowlett.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, and just for the court's sake and the jury's sake, we've actually broken down parts of the interviews because they did last over 3 days. We're going to play what we believe to be significant portions of the interviews. The jury has the entire interviews if they wish to watch them, but for the court's sake and for the jury's sake, we are going to break it down into what we believe to be significant events during the course of the interviews.
Objection, counsel? No, Your Honor. All right. You may proceed.
Okay, Your Honor, we are ready to begin playing parts of the interview.
You may. Remember, we just use those chairs that are already there. We need to dim the lights, Mr. Champion.
I think it might not be a bad idea, Your Honor. There is some glare coming from the windows.
I tell you, once you cut them back on, and I'm gonna let the jury tell me which is best. Let's start it like it is, and then if it's, then we'll cut them off, and you tell me which one you're able to see the best, okay?
Judge, we can actually pause at the beginning to let them take a look.
Okay.
And then we'll
All right.
Y'all need lights on or off?
All right, let's dim them.
Sure.
Gary.
Is this better here?
All right.
A barbecue in the sandbox. We were having, so we just really like just exchange numbers. So I gave her she called my phone, I had her number, we had each other numbers. And then like, one day, next day we started talking. And we just started talking, she had, I want to say I sold her some weed. I think I sold her some weed. And, I sold her some weed. And we started kicking it. On and off, really, like we started like texting and talking. I mean, talking about the Pacific Day? I'm talking about the...
Okay, let's move a chair around here. I want Mr. Tellis to be able to sit with his lawyers doing this video. All right, thank you. You may continue.
So yeah, I worked the day after y'all met and all that. Was, she came to my mom's house. She was looking for some weed. I saw her some weed that day. This is like the day after y'all met, right? Mm-hmm. The next day. I mean, we used to test back and forth and talk on the phone. Okay. So y'all text a lot now. Now, were you in a relationship with anybody else then? I had a girlfriend. Who's your girlfriend? Well, I was talking to a girl named Jamie Shaw. Where'd Jamie stay? She lived down Highway 6 by Curtis on Henry Harris Road. On Curtis Lock Station? The road before you get to Curtis Lock Station, right off of Shell Road. Jamie Shaw, okay. How'd y'all meet? I've been knowing Jamie for years. I met Jamie when I was living on Highway 6, right there by Shell Road. I met her because me and Jamie's brother, we used to work together. And who's her brother? Her brother named Eddie. Eddie? Okay. And me and her brother became friends. And I met Jamie, I went over there one day, just started talking to Jamie. So you started kicking it with Jamie once you got out? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I started that talking. Well, what about this, your wife now? Y'all were, while you were locked up, you were talking to her, right? So once you got out, what was your status with do you call her your girlfriend, or still my girl? So about the one you married to? Yeah, what's her name? Shakita. We was kicking and she came to see me and stuff, but she was down in my room, so I'm up there, so. Okay. No, I think so. Cat's away, I'm waiting. I feel you. So you had Jamie as a girlfriend, just kind of somebody on the side. Yeah, that's a girlfriend. She really was my girlfriend. She was a friend girl. She liked me, wanted to be with me, but I was playing like hardball. I ain't want to just be, which I really didn't want to be with her. I cared for her. I'm with you. Okay. So you date anybody else? I know guys, the moment they get out of prison, they burn that phone up. You know, I mean, who else? It really don't be the guys. It be like females come approach you, like you fresh out. You ain't gotta really just say nothing to them. They just approach you and be like, you're like, damn, I love the free world. So who else were you kicking it with? At the time, Jamie, because she used to spend night with me at my mom's house. I don't even know when I started talking to another girl, but I can't remember what month I was talking to her. When she lived over there she lived in the Shiloh. Her name is Kayana. Yeah. What's her last name? Shit Johnson. Kayana? Kayana Johnson. She got a nickname? Kayana. Everybody called it Yana? Okay. So you started hollering at her at some point? Wow, me and my old lady from down here, we went together. I was talking to her. Okay. Did your old lady from down here ever come up and visit? How often did she come up? She came up there a few times. Oh, really? So where'd she stay when she came up? With me? She stayed in the trailer house there across from Girls? Okay. So anyway, let's get back to Jessica. Y'all met through Keisha. You saw her up there. The first time y'all met, is that when you tried to sell her some weed? You kind of lost me on that, right? The next day. So you met up there. Y'all started texting and talking, and then she hit you up. How much, how'd she know? Did you tell her that day or the day before, obviously, that you had a little bit of grain for her, or had a little bit? I wanna say that same night I met them, I gave them a blunt. That's what I want. I wanna say I gave them a blunt. The same night I met them.
Okay. So she knew you had some. The next day when she hit you up to buy some, how much was she trying to buy?
A blunt.
Just a blunt? Okay. So during y'all's time together, did you serve her several times during your time together?
Probably a couple of times she'll pay me for it, but sometimes I just give it to her.
Just give it to her, okay. Now,
Like when I'm like say if I got like three or four blunts left, I just give it away.
yeah, give it to her, okay. Now were y'all in a physical relationship too?
Meaning,
Did you and her have sex?
yeah, we had sex
Okay. Would you have it pretty often or?
one time.
One time? Really? Okay. And how soon was that after y'all met?
It wasn't long. I don't even think it was 2 weeks later.
2 weeks later. And where did that occur? What can I say?
We had sex beside my mama's house.
Beside the house?
Like in the yard or?
Or in the yard or in that big gravel lot out there?
Yeah.
The big gravel lot?
Grass.
The grass area? Okay. Were y'all in a car or outside or?
It was in her car.
Her car. Yeah, a little bitty car.
Yeah, I know.
You're laughing about that.
It was.
I mean, it really seems small then, right?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. But that was tight fit in that little bitty car. Okay. Well, and I'm not trying to pry, too much, but, I mean, she was a good-looking girl.
Yeah, she was.
Oh, yeah, she really was. So, you had to be attracted to her. And, you hadn't been out of prison that long. How come only one time?
I was trying to get her to give, but she told me her period was on, so, she told me her period was on, so I told her to.
Well, that period didn't last a month and a half or so. So
Period don't last no longer than about 4 or 5 days.
Okay. So, what about before or after she came off her period? You didn't try it again?
About this time, I probably had Jamie in my house, so when Jamie there, I don't too much do nothing.
Did you ever serve Jessica anything besides green? No.
No.
You're thinking mighty hard. I don't care if you did. I'm not the dope police.
I don't think I did. Number green. No, I didn't.
Okay.
If I can remember, I didn't. Number grass.
Did you, when y'all were together, did y'all ever do anything besides green?
It was drink.
Drink, okay. What, did you ever sell her any pills? She ever sell you pills? No. Did you ever have pills to sell?
To me?
Yeah, you.
I done had pills a lot of times.
You did? Is it hard to get? What kind of pills you got?
Lower depending on
Prohibit. Yeah. Let's cut it properly. I mean,
okay, my bad.
I mean, it's past. Yeah.
I done had Fingerprint before too, but Lord tell most of them pills I'm gonna get my hand on. Lord
Is it hard to get tabs up there? Cool.
Nah, it ain't hard.
No. What's the main way people get them tabs now?
Buy from somebody else on the street cheaper, or go to the dentist, go to a doctor.
You go to the hospital?
Dennis?
Anybody ever go to the hospital yet? Trying to get that?
Yeah, you can go to the hospital and do it.
Really? You never tried that, did you?
What, go to the hospital and do it? I don't think I have in Batesville.
So where?
Probably down here.
Okay,
I'm not in Batesville. Bates ain't gonna get you nothing.
Really? Is there a dentist up there that cuts a lot of tabs for folks?
Nah, you gotta go in there with a toothache. Or send somebody with a toothache. If they got a toothache, then they gonna get them
Get
to
the
you.
tabs? How much tabs, when you were in the world up there, how much did tabs go for up there in Colton?
4 or 5 hours a piece, it depends. If you got some tens, you probably can sell them for certain people about $7.
7 for the 10 of it?
Yeah.
Okay. What, anybody ever sell any knockoffs up there?
What's the?
Like fake tabs or anything?
Did anybody ever sell some?
Did you ever see anybody trying to push any fake tabs?
If anybody did, it's probably gonna be my cousin. He'll sell anything.
Who's that?
His name's Tony
Tony who?
Johnson.
Tony Johnson.
Oh boy, he'll sell anything.
So, just to, trying to, you can see I'm not taking any damn notes, I'm just, kind of in the conversation when you did. You met Jessica, and interrupt me if I get any of this wrong, okay? You were with Big Mike when you met Keisha.
How about myself?
You were by yourself when you met.
Just in Big Mike's truck.
That's the night I met both. Boy,
Yeah.
I was seeing both of them at the store. The night I was in Big Mike's truck.
Okay, and you were with Big Mike, and you knew Keisha, you met Jess that night, Jessica. You may have even given them a blunt that night.
Changed from
Yeah, and switched up numbers. Y'all started texting and talking the next day. How often? So you got out in the middle of October. You met.
I got out October the 9th.
9th, and then you met Keisha a little bit after that, and a little bit after that you met Jessica. So y'all exchanged numbers. How often did you guys talk every day after you met?
We ain't really talk much, but like we probably test each other. Like if I ain't doing nothing, I test her. Probably if she ain't doing nothing, she'll test me. We'll respond for about 3 minutes, then start, then probably it'll start back up later on or something like that.
So it's fair to say y'all text about every day, just saying what's up. Okay. How often did y'all see each other?
I mean, after I met her and stuff, I used to see her like all the time.
I'm sorry, do what?
After I met her, once I got to know who she was, I see her all the time around.
Yeah, because I mean, you wasn't working at that point.
No, I wasn't working.
Okay. And soon after that, you had sex. All right, 20 of those girls, they're killing. How the hell did y'all have sex in that little bitty car? She come over to you, to your side of the car?
Yeah.
Or she climbed over there?
It was small. Yeah, the car was small. We was on the passenger seat.
She came over there to you? Okay. Just curious on that, That's the only time?
Yeah, one time.
Okay. So, did you maintain?
Like I said, I tried to get it again, but she had told me her period was on. After that, I ain't even trying no more.
Really? Did y'all kiss anymore or anything like that? Just nothing? Okay. Tried one more time, she was on a period, you never tried again. Seems like you give up pretty easy.
I don't give up. It just, I don't give up. It's
I'm with you, okay. So so she had her little car and all, how were you getting around then?
either I was with Big Mike. Most of the time I stay like around Big Mike now.
Down at Big Mike's house?
No, I don't. We'd be in a sandbox. We'd be in a sandbox most of the time. Having barbecues.
That's where you stay most of the time? Now, did you go to Big Mike's house some?
Yeah, in a yard. In a yard.
Yeah, okay.
Most of the time he either come pick me up or he at the store or we around out.
Okay. I'm trying to place, and you say he had what color was his truck?
White.
White Denali? Okay. Is that the only vehicle he drove?
Just someone he drove.
Okay. So, did you ever borrow his car to get around there?
When he send me to the store, come to the store.
Okay. You borrow that
Or
car?
I run to my house.
And what would you drive at your house?
I said when I go to my house. I'm talking about his truck.
Oh, you drive his truck, okay. Jessica ever let you borrow a little car? You never drove it at all?
We went like that.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So you never drove it at all, huh?
I think I drove a car to the liquor store one time, Jessica.
To the liquor store with Jessica?
Yeah, she was in there.
Where's the liquor store?
Uptown, basically.
All the way to Bastrop. Why didn't she drive her car?
Why did I drive it?
Why did you drive it? Why didn't she drive it?
Because we were rushing trying to get to the liquor store before 10 o'clock. But we ended up still to make it was like 9:50 something, but they were still closed.
Okay. Let's talk about, there's certain things that happen in your life that, you remember where you were. I think everybody in Courtland remembers that December 6th. Am I right? That's the day she died.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
Okay. Now, I want to talk to you. I want you to walk me through your day. Okay. And I want you to take the time, and I might take some notes here. Again, you can see them. But I want you to take your time. I want you to think back, and I want you to walk me through your day. Okay? All right, so you woke up.
I woke up.
What time did you wake up that day?
I don't know what time I woke up. I don't know. I get up early.
Okay. The night before, did you spend the night at your house, your mama's house?
No, I was staying with my mom.
Okay, you're staying there with your mom. Think back. Was anybody in town? Did y'all have company in town? No. Okay.
Not that I can remember, rather.
Okay. So it was your mom, your stepdad, you, Poo-Poo, and the two kids. Was your other sister there?
No, she got her own house.
She got her own house. Okay, so it was you guys there. Anybody else the night before? Did anybody else stay there that you know?
Jamie, she be staying with me, something like the one from Curtis, she be staying with me.
Okay. Jamie? Okay. So you woke up that day. What was going on? I mean, what'd you do that day? Walk me through it.
I woke up, got up, fold my mail, fold my clothes, put on some clothes. Every morning I walk to the store, so I probably walk to the store.
You walked out?
Walk to the store. Probably, well, I ain't gonna keep saying, I just gotta have the same problem. But, I know, I want to say the guy with bit Mike.
Okay. You walked to the store, what'd you buy at the store?
I'll be buying sausages and biscuits. And potatoes, the little potatoes. That would be it, Mike.
So you went with Big Mike over there to the store that day?
He pulled up at my mom's house.
Okay. So he pulled up before or after you went and got your sausage and biscuits?
After probably a couple hours later or something.
A couple hours later. That's not jump. We don't want to jump hours now. We're dealing with minutes here.
Oh, okay.
So you walked across the street, got your sausage and biscuits. Who all did you talk to over there at the store? Do you remember who all was working?
I can't remember.
Was Ali working?
I think Ali worked in the evening time.
Okay.
It was morning time.
Who cooked the sausage and biscuits, you remember?
I want to say, I don't know if my sister girlfriend was probably Rena.
Rena was there?
Another person worked there.
Okay. Now, how, you just gotten out, you've been out almost 2 months. How are you getting money at this point?
Selling weed.
Selling weed? I'm sorry, I understand, sir. Remember, all I want's the truth, dude. That's cool. I understand, sir. Okay. You know, just waiting, I'll put my pen down. How much were you selling at that point?
I want to sell it, I'm a blind.
Oh, really?
I'll say a quarter, blind, a quarter. I wasn't working with too much. I had no more than an ounce at a time or something.
Okay. So you wasn't?
And I went up there.
Okay. So you get a sausage and biscuit, and you come back across, you come back to the house, walk back to the house. Think back, did you see anybody else? Did you talk to anybody on the phone? I mean, put me there.
I probably, I can't remember if I talked to Jessica that morning. I want to say I did. It was just, I know, I don't want to lie to you, but I want to say her and Keisha came over there. And I got in. I want to say I got in the car with them. We went riding, and I ain't smoke weed. We went riding, and they smoked the blunt. And I'm trying to let you know everything.
You know, I know you're right, because I know you did do that. I know they did pick you up. So see, remember I told you, I know a lot more.
I ain't gonna lie to you.
I know, and I don't want that. You know, you're an honorable guy. Remember what your mama tell you. She treats you, treat people with respect, right? And be honest. You know, that's what I'm doing to you, right? So, and I know that they picked you up. Okay, so that's good. So when they picked you up, where'd you go? You left your driveway and went where?
Well, I want to say that, I don't know. We went on, I don't know if we went through the sandbox too, but I know we went on down the post office hill. We went all the way around. They smoked, then we came back.
What's all the way around? If I'm not from over there, what's all the way around?
Down the post office hill, down by the fire department, over railroad track. We went right down the hill, all the way up through there, all the way up, like it's like a split. We went down that way. We went around the back side of the courthouse. You know what I'm talking about? Backed up at the third.
So y'all to the left at the split. When you go down there past the railroad tracks, take a left at the split.
Once you go up there, down through there.
I got you.
We went right down through there, then we came back up through, the other side of Shiloh. Then we came back behind here. Well, we were just around while they was smoking. Then they brought me back to the house. And that's when I got with Big Mike.
Okay.
I don't know what they went to.
Okay. Did y'all, while you're making this big turn, so y'all went down past the railroad tracks to the split to the left, and you kept driving, it gets wooded area, and you end up coming back to the north side that way? Or did you end up coming back into Cortland?
Yeah, the same way we went down, we came back
But
up.
you took the right that way, coming back in? Okay. And then you went up to Shiloh that way?
We went down, okay. Across the road from where Big Mike, there's a store.
Right,
Big
it all,
store. You go down there by the big store, you go railroad track, the fire department, you get up to this hill, there's a split, you can go either that way or that way. We went down, we made the left, like down through there, like where Jessica got killed at. We went up through there, then we came back up, then okay, we back at the split. We made
take that left there to go back
we
up.
went around there, then came to the freeway, made the right, like going back towards my house, coming over another railroad track by Safe? Not Safe.
The church you're talking about?
What's that church? Yeah, because all doing, when I got out, that's all I used to hang with Big Mike. Big Mike came pick me up. Me and Big Mike, we be going out there, going around. Me and Big Mike, probably a couple more people. My sister may be with us sometimes.
Okay, we're not talking probably, and we're not talking sometimes. We're talking, you got back to your house.
Okay.
And you were there for however long. Big Mike shows up. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, you went riding around with Big Mike. Okay. When you left your house, who all was you in Big Mike's truck?
Yeah, I with Big Mike.
Okay. Okay. Big Mike driving, you in the passenger seat. When you left your house, who else was in that truck?
Me and Big Mike.
You and Big Mike, okay. Anybody else?
Oh, I can't say, I know. If it ain't just me and Big Mike, it's me, Big Mike, and Poople. But I want to say it was just me and Big Mike.
Okay. Where did you guys go? You left your house and went where?
To the sandbox.
To the sandbox. Y'all stopped this traffic?
No, we stopped. They got a hangout spot in the sandbox.
Right. So you went to the hangout spot. How long were you there?
We stopped there for a couple of hours. Then got us couple of hours. Probably went back to my house. Then we like got some beer. We just sit watch the highway. We sit in my mom, we all watch the highway.
Okay. So, you and Big Mike, y'all stayed at the sandbox. Where'd y'all leave the beer?
I had the beer.
You had the beer at your house, so you didn't stop to get beer. After you left the sandbox, was anybody else in the car with you?
People just pulled up at my mom's house. They see Big Mike truck. They just come over there and just get in and sit in the truck with us.
And that Big Mike, popular guy? He sell too?
With everybody.
What else he sell?
Weed.
Is that it? You sure?
That's all I don't have to say myself.
She sell more weight than you do, though? Yeah, how much he sell? QP?
Shit. Like I know, I heard he got busted with like, well, oh, he'll take it back. They did say he had a brown truck, he got repoed up. But I ain't know nothing about the brown. I don't know, I ain't never seen him in brown truck. They say he got busted. When a repo man came there, they got like I won't say they said about 4 pounds out the truck.
So they repoed his truck,
And got the weed out
and
there.
then
You know,
so they're keeping the stash in the truck? Wow, okay. So you got back to your house. Y'all started drinking beer. Now what time are we talking about?
up and on. I was between 1 and 3. Just in the afternoon. One just sitting there
Drinking beer on Saturday, I got it. Who all stopped in to see y'all?
There was one guy, Tootie, I don't know if I'm saying, he got,
He what?
his last name, she got,
Tootie Shego?
yeah.
And what's Tootie Shego driving?
Well, that day he was driving some kind of like Sonata, up to that car. It was, I don't know if that was his mom car, his girlfriend car. It was like a Sonata.
Okay. So Tootie stopped. Who else?
Michael Rudd.
Michael Rudd. Why you laughing when you tell me?
Michael Rudd. Drunk.
And
Michael Rudd.
how did he get there? He drive?
Yeah,
So all these people that are coming, do they just pull up in your mom's driveway?
pretty much.
There's no pretty much, yes or no question.
Yeah.
So they all put in your mom's driveway. Okay, so Michael Rudd, what's his name, Tootie? Who else stopped by that afternoon?
Travis. Travis. That's it.
Travis who?
Travis Hill. Travis Hill Sanford. That's been Mike from people.
Travis Hill Sanford.
I said Hill Sanford. His last name Sanford.
Travis Hill Sanford.
No, he's saying he's a Sanford.
Travis Hill Sanford.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is that Travis Sanford? Is that his last name? Or is he in that clan down there? Is that family? Sanford family?
Yeah.
Okay. So how did he get there?
I wonder if he got dropped off the road his third body. I can't remember.
Did you ever ride that dirt bike around?
I had a dirt bike.
Did you ride it a lot? Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Okay. All right. So you're sitting there. How long did Big Mike stay there?
We was there for a while. So long. I can't remember how long he stayed there.
All right. Time marches on. So when's the next time you talk to Jessica?
I talked to Jessica that same day, that evening.
That evening.
I had gave her some money. She had called me and asked me for some money to get her something to eat.
She asked you for money to get her something to eat. Okay.
So I met at the store called Jamie. She was in the house. Well, I'm thinking, Jamie, she was in the house.
She was over at your mom's house, Jamie was.
So what'd you do? Did you just run out and go see her over at the store?
We were sitting there, Jamie and I, we in the truck, so I walk over there to the store and get them.
And when was this?
Just the thing that me and Big Mike thought was in the yard drinking.
Okay. So where exactly was she when you gave her the money?
She was in the parking lot.
It's a big parking lot. Where was she?
Like the parking lot right here, that's a road right here, she had it pulled right there, like in the gravel, in the parking lot.
So what time was this? Was it still night out? Was it night or daytime?
It wasn't night yet, it was daytime.
So you just went over there and gave her some money?
Some money, because she asked me for some money to get something to eat, so I gave it to her.
Okay. You get in the car with her? You sure?
Positive.
Positive.
Yes, sir. I just like threw the money, well actually I just threw the money in, because I never know if Jamie was to come up there, I just threw the money in, and went back, got in trouble.
Got back in the truck. So who was in the car with Jessica when you saw her?
She was by herself.
She was by herself. Okay. And where'd she go? You gave her some money. Was she going to get you something to eat too?
I gave her some money, I gave her something to eat.
Had you ever loaned her money before?
Probably gave her money a couple of times. First time I get her something to eat, but I something to eat. Really, I ain't calling them, but like, getting a few dollars to get something to eat here and there.
Okay. So you threw the money in, it was still daylight. You just kind of threw it, and you walked back over. You got in the truck with Big Mike, is that what you're telling me?
Back in the truck.
Back in the truck? Okay. And did she leave?
Yeah. So when I gave her money, she said thank you, and she left.
Which way did she leave out of there?
She went up the back road.
She went up the back road. And we're calling the back road. What's the name of that road? The one that goes behind
the store? Carolina.
She went up that way. So you go back in your truck with Big Mike. Did she go get something to eat?
I don't know. I gave her money to her. I don't know if she went and got her some to eat though.
And Big Mike drives a white Denali. What kind of Denali is it? I mean, is it?
Have you ever seen?
I don't know if I have. I've been sitting here trying to think of it. Is it a pickup or is it like an SUV?
It's an SUV. You know, I'm a Suburban. It's kind of like a version of it, but it's a Denali.
Okay. So it's the long one or the short one?
The long.
Long.
So it's like a Suburban, huh?
About the same
You
model?
kind of
Yeah, with the third or two.
Okay.
About the same year model?
I don't know.
Or was it a little newer?
Well, not my mom's truck, but like my stepdad, he got a Suburban, but it ain't too much different from it. So she left.
How long before you started talking to her again?
Late on that night, we was talking then, we was testing, but I couldn't leave the house though. I was still with Jamie.
Really? Just, Jamie gonna tell the exact same story? Okay. So you couldn't leave the house because you were with Jamie. You texted her.
I could though, but I didn't.
You could have.
Hold up. That night. Hold up, Jamie. So, we talking about the night, the day she got killed.
Mm-hmm.
The night. Oh, that night. No, I went with Jamie. I went with Jamie that night. My girl from Louisiana, the one that I'm down here with, she supposed to be coming. So I was there doing some talk, so I told Jessica I couldn't see her that night, cause I had to, go to town to get, my girl a green dot.
We skipping a bunch of hours. And I know you talked before, and I know you end up going up there later on in the night to get a green dot. But while we can get a green dot, we'll get to that later. If she was coming to town while we get a green dot, we'll get there. Let's back up about 4 or 5 hours, okay? Your girl wasn't in. Jamie wasn't there.
No,
She wasn't. So that's good. So we're not trying to get Jamie to, that's good. You're thinking.
see, cause Jamie, I'm not thinking, I'm just saying, cause Jamie, she was back and forth the whole time I was talking to Jessica.
But you and I both know Jamie wasn't there that Saturday afternoon.
Yes, she was.
I'm asking. Did you remember going and giving Jessica money?
Yeah, I did that.
Okay.
I did that.
Thinking back, did you get the call with Jessica after you gave her that money?
No, sir.
No. You went back to your house.
I went back, got back in trouble with Big Mike.
So Big Mike's still there. Okay. Anybody else in the truck with y'all at that point?
It was me, Big Mike, Michael Rudd, Travis, and Tootie.
So you had 5 people in that truck? And 2. You, Big Mike. Who was sitting behind Big Mike?
Oh, Tootie.
2. Who was behind you?
Travis. Travis was behind me. No, hold on, let's see. It was Big Mike, Tootie, Travis, me, Michael Rudd. Michael Rudd was in the back. I was behind the driver's seat.
Your Honor, while we're getting the next segment up, I'd like to ask him a few questions about this particular segment.
All right. Time estimate on this?
Sir?
A time estimate on this? Get set up?
Oh, it's ready now.
Oh, okay.
I just want to, what I want to do is ask the questions as we go through each segment.
All right. Yes, sir.
Tim, as you and Scott began talking with Quentin, he indicated, and I believe he said on there, that they had had sex.
Yes, sir.
And where was the area that he pointed out? Were you familiar with that area?
Yes, sir.
And where is that in relation to what the jury would have seen yesterday?
That area is the driveway just south of the house. So it's going to be maybe 30 yards south of the house is that second driveway. And the place he indicated, I don't know if you walked down there or how far you did, approximately 50, 60 yards east of the little access road. There's I call it privet hedge, little privet hedge line. And so Quentin indicated that they backed up inside that, just other side of that privet, which would be just east of that little privet hedge line, parallel to the south end of the trailer.
And where did they indicate they had sex in the vehicle?
In the passenger seat. He stated that she crawled over on top of him.
And he also, when y'all were talking with him about where they drove on the morning that she was burned, did he indicate that they went by the scene?
Yes, sir.
All right. And how many times did they go by the scene that morning?
He stated twice. He even stated, I don't know if you picked it up, he stated, we rode by where Jessica got killed. And then Agent Meadows asked if he had gone all the way back around and come into Cortland. He said, no, sir, came back by. So and I think it was at that point I said, so you came by twice? And he said, yes, sir.
And then y'all began to kind of get into his day. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And did he indicate that he ever personally saw Jessica again that day after they rode around that morning?
Yes, sir, one time.
Okay, as I understood what he said, he was giving Jessica some money.
He said he gave her $10 to go get her something to eat. That's what he was indicating.
Okay, and where did he indicate to you that he gave her the money?
Would have been in the large gravel driveway of the store, so that'd be south of the store, that large parking area.
So the jury's been there, and as you coming up 51 where his driveway is, basically across the street from where his driveway
Straight
was?
across, yes, sir.
More towards the store?
That's correct, straight across the street, yes, sir.
Now, he indicated to you, or did he indicate to you that he saw Jessica again after that?
No, sir.
Okay. And I believe, if I heard him correctly, he indicated that this occurred during the daytime. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
And then I believe you asked him, or Scott asked him, where he went, or where Jessica went after that.
And he
what
stated,
did-
I'm sorry, go ahead, sir. He stated that she went back up Carlisle.
Okay. Did he indicate to you that he started talking with Jessica later on?
Yes, sir.
And what did he say?
That she wanted, I think it was that she wanted to meet again, but he stated that he couldn't because his girlfriend Chiquita was coming up from Louisiana.
Now, initially he indicated that Jamie Shaw was with him all day. Is that correct?
He did, and we had actually already talked to Jamie Shaw before we went to Louisiana, and it'll be the first of what I call, I don't know if you call it, it'll be the first of what I call the wait a minute or the uh-oh moments. You'll see several as this interview progresses. Mr. Tellis will indicate, I was with so-and-so, we were doing such and such, and Meadowsar will say, well, wait a minute, Quentin, it's up, wait a minute, or uh-oh, and so he would change. Agent Meadows even brought out the fact, he said, Quentin, you and I both know you weren't with Jamie. He said, yes, that's right. Oh, you talking about that day? Yes, you're right.
When y'all had been talking about that day all along?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. All right. Your Honor, this time we've got another segment to play.
How long was this segment, Ken?
45 minutes.
All right, I think I'm gonna go on and break for lunch now then. I think this is a good place to stop. You can stand down, sir. Please don't discuss your testimony with anyone as you're still under the rules, sir.
Yes, sir, thank you all.
All right, if you'll take charge of the jury and put them in their jury room, please, for lunch. All right, be my intentions to resume court at 12:45. All right? All right, we'll be in recess.